today we're going to be going over 5 ways to strengthen your mind. Number 1, be the observer. What this means is that you're going to become the observer of your own mind, right? Become the observer of your own thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, the things that you're feeling, that you're experiencing, the way that you interact with people. You're driving around, you know what I'm saying, you're getting angry, you're getting frustrated, somebody says something to you. Learn to be able to step back and to observe those things as if they were happening to somebody else. It's almost like you're standing behind yourself, watching your own life play out like a movie, and then you're eating your popcorn and watching this like, wow, I'm getting angry about that. So it can be exhausting at first. When you kind of train yourself to do it and you get into the groove of it, it becomes easier and easier. The challenge sometimes is that if you're expecting other people to maintain the same kind of observance, and then when you're trying to go in and explain to somebody this, that, and the other, it has a very exhausting effect on this, right? My wife tells me often how exhausting I am, because when you're doing this, you're constantly analyzing, you're constantly trying to review, replay, and you learn a whole lot really, really fast, right? Some things may be obvious, some things not so obvious. The trick is with this one and all the other ones I'm going to be giving today, or my other videos for that matter, is consistency, right? We have to attempt to do these things day in and day out to achieve the desired outcome. Whether it's you pick one of these things that I give today, or you try to do all of them, maybe you're doing some of them already, the point is to do them consistently. So be the observer of the mind. That's a big one, right? And what you'll see is that there's a lot of crossover between the other ones, like say, for instance, the next one here, right? Practice concentration on a single object, right? That's like the basic foundation of most meditative techniques. By doing that, you then will become a better observer, right? So the point of that is that you pick one object that you're going to then try to recreate in your mind. Let's say you use the cross or an image of Buddha, or whatever that kind of inspires you to be better than yourself. You pick an image that resonates with you, and then you try to hold and then recreate that image in as much detail as possible. Now we can be saying thinking of Buddha, right, or the cross or something like that. And then you're holding this image in your mind, but then thoughts will come in and you're thinking about that image, but you're not visualizing it, right? So those are two different things, right? And this is the major challenge with most of the meditative practices, particularly people who have, like, say, active minds like myself, who was diagnosed with ADD. It gets challenging in a sense because you're going to want to then work this kind of the observer role, right? You can be trying to take the observer role in your meditation, which is great, right? That's more of a contemplative kind of meditation exercise, which is great, right? There's a lot of benefits of that, but it's different than picking one image and then trying to recreate and visualize that same image, right? I love using the analogy of closing down the apps. That you have your work, you have your YouTube, you have your girlfriend, fiance, your one that you want to get, or whatever the case is. You have all these things going on in your mind. When you narrow your focus in on that one object, you're shutting down these apps, allowing your brain to then be able to focus on whatever it is that you're trying to do, and then you're going to become way more productive. Things are going to happen a lot faster, and it just becomes easier. Anything that you're doing becomes easier by doing that. So when you train yourself to get a little better at staying singled focus, it'll allow you, say your single focus is going to be the observer. It's just going to make that much easier. Number 3, identify what emotions are most often present. I'm just going to read from here. Is it fear, anger, worry, sexual desire? Doing this will separate you from the pack. This is huge. You begin to see how you and everyone else around you are led by their emotions and doing things without even realizing it. A lot of times for most people, it's only after said the event to say, oh, why did I do that? Like, oh, I got angry because they said this to me. Well, they said that to me because, and that made me feel a certain way, right? So the objective is to get ahead of the game. When you learn what your triggers are, or these kinds of things, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to not kind of just jump in on that. Um, I use the analogy also of, like, people will say their sports teams lost, a lot of the political stuff going on. There's people who come in with a lot of anger, frustration, and fear, and be like, hey, did you see this? And I usually didn't see it, so I'm like, oh, and I can instantly tell that they're angry, they're frustrated, they have fear. There's something that is driving them into this kind of emotional state towards whatever it is, right? And I can choose whatever I can believe it. I can then buy in, or I have, say, skin in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's your sports team and they lost, and you're like, oh yeah, or whatever it is, right? When I say that it's going to separate you from the pack, you're going to see instantly when people are then moved, right, into some kind of position, whether it's angry, frustration, desire could be a positive thing too, right? You're getting kind of caught up in that emotion. Now, these things have their place, right? I'm not saying that you're going to walk around like a freaking robot all day and every day, but to give yourself the opportunity to choose, do I want to continue to then be moved by this emotion? So let's just say you find these emotions, say some that you already know, some that you don't know. You're going to learn to then sublimate them. This is huge. This has transformed so much in my life, right? I've always, and not always, but I've always been a physical person. I had a lot of energy. So, like, say, sports or things like that. When I got angry, I got frustrated, things were out of my control. My first instinct was like, I gotta work. You know what I mean? I gotta do something. When I took that out, I became destructive to myself and to other people and things, right? So what I was doing is sublimating these emotions into productive, most of the time, productive activities, right? And that is the whole point, is that once you realize and you learn through generally 1 through 3 up there, that there's potential for something to do better, then you channel that energy into something, say, positive, right? And I'm using working out because it's like one of the most popular kind of ways of explaining this, is that, say, you're frustrated about something, you're angry about something, you go and you channel that into a good workout. I'm sure that a lot of people have experienced that. Or another thing a lot of people experience is to work, right? That you're going to put in all of your effort into work. You don't like your home life, or you don't like this about whatever is going on. Let me go to work, right? You have built value around your productivity with work, which can be great, right? Anything in excess can be detrimental or can be destructive, right? So say you're constantly you're leaving the house to go to work, you're really missing out on a lot of opportunities there, right? So find other ways to then sublimate that. All right, number 5, read and write. So it's 2 in 1, right? So a lot of people, may be doing some reading, not writing, some writing, not reading, whatever the case is, right? With YouTube, with Audible, which is like audiobooks through Amazon, which I love, by the way. And I'm guilty of this, right? I've taken a back seat to actually writing, right? I do a lot of reading still, but writing, right? So for me personally, this was a challenge, right? I used to write a lot when I was younger, and then I kind of fell off. And then when I started writing again, and then working with business professionals, I realized there was an inadequacy towards my writing, right? I always felt self-conscious about me not being able to spell certain words, where to put the grammar or the punctuation, grammar issues, these kinds of things. And I saw this as an opportunity to level up, right? As some like to say, in my own life, right? So a friend of mine told me about Grammarly, which is like an app that you can put on your phone, and it basically can kind of help you and teach you where to put certain things. And so I kind of made it a mission, like, okay, I need to start writing a little bit more. I need to be a little bit more productive on trying to organize my thought into words, right? So even today, right, I'm writing this stuff out. And the benefit of doing that is that you can then, I've always been a decent talker. I can just, I have a couple ideas because I do a lot of thinking that I can, kind of spit them out there. But what I've learned is that by forcing myself to write these things out and to do this stuff has helped me to clarify and articulate my thoughts even better, right? So whatever it is that you're not doing, if you're not doing either one of them, find a book that you like, whether it's fiction, not fiction. It's generally easier to start with something that you enjoy. So pick something, something that you like, If you're not doing any reading at all, right, maybe start with a magazine, the newspaper, whatever it is. I suggest, whatever it is that's going to help you stay with it, right? Mystery novel or whatever, these kinds of things make it a little easier to get into it, as opposed to like trying to find like some study material if you haven't been reading. It could be challenging at first, right? But the benefit of, say, reading versus like the audiobooks, which again I love, right? I do a lot of audiobooks when I'm in the car, I'm traveling, these kinds of things, is that the thing keeps on rolling. You really want to give yourself an opportunity to kind of contemplate some of these things that may resonate with you. So when you're reading, you may read something, it's like, oh yeah, that's great. And you kind of sit back, you think about it, you kind of, relate it to something that's happened in your life. And then from there, it's going to give you some insight to then how to better yourself, right? Journaling, I'm going to be talking about that in one of the other videos, is, like that's part of the writing. It can be challenging at times when you first get going to then have to sit there and write either freehand, or if you like to type, you can type. But whatever the point is, just to find something that resonates with you, that you feel like, yeah, I can do that, I can do that. And then accept the challenge to do it daily. Journal daily, read a little something daily. If it's the Bible, you got your Bible, they have these like everyday, scripture quotes, or there's all kinds of stuff out there, right? Especially with the internet. I mean, there's just so much out there. Find something that you like. So if you like this, you have any comments, suggestions, feedback, feel free to leave them in the comment section. If you want me to expand on anything, put it there as well. Have a good one.